Okay.
Mr. Joyce, could you give me clarity, and I think the students will benefit from a good definition or explanation of the leaving cert? How does the process and why does the process work?
Well, you know, you throw me there because it's about, I'm working out here, is in many years since I sat it, 40 something, and the leaving, it's I suppose the equivalent at high school. It's the final examination at high school level, which qualifies you for getting into university, or getting into not just university but other third level courses. So I don't know if there's an equivalent American exam or EU exam, perhaps. High school is the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
I had a child do this, so I could perhaps help out here.
Yeah.
One of my children, finding the absolute dearth of American universities as a possibility for education, did go off into a British system. And that, I think, is part of what Colleen was originally asking. What happens to a high school student who might want to go directly into a Irish or English, Scottish, British university, or Canadian as well. They're very similar. So we don't have any kind of leaving certs here. So we don't have what has been well described as a kind of funnel directly from your perceived aptitude into a course of study that will lead to a profession. So for Americans, the process of applying to college is extremely different on both sides of even the American-Canadian border. If you're going to an American college, you need your SATs and your ACTs. They're not much inspected in an Anglo-Irish system. There is one date for which the entire, say, Canadian university system requires application, as opposed to some standard dates, but rather multiple deadlines among United States colleges and universities. While we have a common application now in US systems, there always is a common application in the other system. So the getting in is different. The inspection, to get into many colleges, you write essays, you take, the writing portion, the SAT has changed. To get into Dartmouth, you need 36 and a relative, and a donation somewhere. To get into, whatever else, you need all these various things. And those just aren't so applicable in many of these other systems, right? And then I honestly say, having a child who went to a non-American school, it is an extraordinarily different experience in that this sort of, however much movement there is to the sort of liberal arts sorting out mode, it's still not as deeply entrenched as in the liberal arts curriculum of many colleges in the United States. And so he had to determine very quickly what he was going to do. He made the wrong choice, so we added a year. And it was virtually like being a graduate student. So now he is a very good graduate student. But I don't necessarily think he was a very good undergraduate student, So the appeal of, I understand his reaction, I understand the appeal, but one should go in with wide eyes, because it will be different than your parents' education if they went to school here in the United States, or different than your perceptions of American education.
There's a question in the back there.
Yes. I think Dr. O'Donoghue spoke about the impact of the GI Bill. Before World War II, only the elite went to universities. The vast majority of people did not. After World War II, with the GI Bill, that changed. It became part of family aspirations, sort of across the board, at least within the white community. But our inner city kids have not, to the extent, been affected by this kind of aspirational motivation. And I'm just wondering, I know the universities do reach out to high schools, but a lot of the aspirational imagination of children is formed much earlier, in middle school, in primary school. And there seems to be a disconnect, especially for a lot of our inner city kids who grow up thinking of different paths, some of them not what we want them to think of. So I open this sort of as a challenge to ask you to think about that.
I can address it from Lorain County Community College's perspective. Lorain County has two major urban cities, Elyria and Lorain, and then we also have a very agricultural part of the county, so it's very mixed. We have, since the college was actually founded, have representation from our board members, who 6 are appointed by the county, 3 from the governor, who represent our various constituencies and cities and that sort of thing. And so from the very outset, we have been integrated into the community. We have some very specific initiatives for the inner cities around. We have outreach centers that are placed there so that we can have, in a very non-threatening way, a very comfortable environment for residents to even walk to, and they start when they're this big to have access to computer labs, college for kids. We also have something we call Reach Higher, which is from K through 16, the entire continuum, and we work in the schools. We actually, we are in 17 high schools throughout the community, but to your point, it starts much lower. And so we have partnerships within the middle schools. We created, back in 1987, a guarantee, which at that time was kind of unheard of. But we created a guarantee, and that guarantee was any student graduating from a Lorain County high school or being a Lorain County resident who had a grade point average, we had 2 scholarships, a grade point average of 3.7 and above would have a full tuition paid at Lorain County Community College, and anyone who had a 3.25 and above would have 75%. We also created a diversity incentive award for any student who had a 2.5 and above, that we had a last dollar award that would cover any gap scholarship. And so, you know, looking back to 1987 and until today, we have literally given millions of dollars invested, and the message to the parents, and in our community, particularly in the inner cities, the parents of those students were not educated in colleges. And so it's been a culture change, changing the mindset. But, you know, as I look at that, and I've been there for 24 years and have been part of the development and the delivery of that, we have, I do believe, changed that mindset. We have 33% of those students accepting those awards. When I look at the percentage of high school students in those 2 major urban areas who are taking college credit at the same time as taking high school classes, we have 20% of them doing that. And so, but I think it's a long-term culture change proposition. Like my colleague Tom, I spent 10 years in advancement as vice president of our foundation, along with the external relations of the college. And so we very deliberately raised those dollars from philanthropists, from organizations, so that we could make that investment and work with those who did not have those aspirations. We've made some difference, but I believe that we still have a way to go.
It's the big challenge. Most of our students come from Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and the vast majority of our students are first generation students. And we take those students in. We spend a lot of time with 50% of them need some kind of remedial education, and we spend a good lot of resources doing that. And I think the partnership with the community colleges is extraordinarily powerful and important one in ensuring the pipeline of students from the schools. We actually have 2 schools on our campus, by the way, the International School and the STEM School, which are part of the public school system, which have big waiting lists to get in. And certainly the STEM School now pride themselves on the diversity of those students. 2 things worry me. One is that when we look at the ACT scores of the students coming in, there is still a significant majority of number of students in the public school system who are college ready, but don't come to us. Don't come to any university or any tertiary level education. We have to reach out and grasp those students and encourage them and help them understand how college attendance can become a reality, that they can translate that dream into something important. And we have to do a better job then at making it possible for students to stay. When we look at the students we lose, we don't lose students out of Cleveland State University because they're on academic probation or they're kicked out. The vast majority of them leave because they can no longer afford to go. It might be a matter of $1,000, $500. A lot of them are just these number of credits short. But something happens in the family circumstance that they, now we do everything we can to bring those students back, and our whole advancement campaign moving forward is all focused on scholarships and helping those students succeed. But we have a long way to go. You know, I was reminded when you were talking, I said to the high school counselors, when I went to school in Belfast, the school I went to was called St. Vincent's. And it was actually founded to allow the children who worked in the linen mills half-time come to school. It was for the half-timers, so they could get the basic reading, writing, arithmetic, some skills to go on. Now, over the generations that went into, you know, so I was like the fourth generation, but the school was so excellent, and the culture of sending your kid to school was so strong that school continued to send that flow. It's a lot of work, it takes time, it's culture's raising aspirations, but it's also making darn sure that those aspirations can be translated into something.
I do have to weigh in here because this is also our concern too, though we are probably perceived as a very expensive private university. Our commitment to including students who wouldn't have access and getting them through is profound. Our graduation rate for our Ohio, we were part of the Ohio Access Program, the funding went away. We put our own dollars into that cohort. We graduated 84%. Our friend Deborah DeLise, who's Deborah DeLau, works with the Department of Education, has helped us to create a partnership with Cleveland Heights University to have an early college. So we have a care team, and in a small university, this care team of 20 people include financial aid to counseling, academic and personal counseling. So though again, some students don't always like this level of attention, we know exactly who's failing and exactly why. And our commitment to graduation, which as my colleagues have said, is the key, not just starting but finishing, is very deep in our strategic priorities.
Thank you. I'm a product of Tri-C in Cleveland State on the GI Bill. Couple questions. I have heard no mention of online education. I'm wondering if any of your schools participate. If so, what's your experience been? And if not, why? And secondly, do you have to reach out to veterans these days, or are they coming to you?
We have about 10 minutes left. So I just want to make sure we understand our time frame here. I want to try to make one more question here. So
we will need one of us address it.
So,
how's that too?
Well, I just want to make
we
sure.
We could probably do a double
sure.
Thing on the vets. And this is, I think, where the governor is very, very hot on this. We all realize the importance of vets. We're reaching out to them. All of us are making efforts. Even before the governor prodded us quite rightly that you know their applications are free. We try to make it very easy for the veterans to come in, and actually a lot of us are looking at prior learning assessment. But they got a lot of skills in the Army. They should be able to translate those into credits and move along very quickly into certain tracks, be it in engineering, or nursing, or whatever. We are big in online education. I think we're only going to get bigger because that's the way to do it. One good example, for instance, is the RN to BSN. You know, a lot of RN students coming out of community colleges, but the hospitals are all saying you've got to get your BSN now. So we're making that's completely an online course at us. But it means we've got to develop different products for different populations. I think for people who are out there, and Ohio has a huge number of people who have some college experience credits but never completed. And those people, especially in the economy here in Ohio, need to be retooled, retrained. But they do want to come back and spend 15 weeks every semester and pay that money. They may just need a shorter number of courses, we need to be able to deliver them in a different way or a different time frame in different modules, and that's where online education can help us.
I would add to that, we've developed the Associate of Arts and Associate of Science degree that are online or in a blended format. And to the point on veterans, we do a combination both of reaching out. We work with veterans groups throughout the community. We have one of our lead faculty members. He is the Veterans Liaison for faculty and for students, and we are in the process of unveiling some new commitments to veterans that include everything from specialized orientations and looking at the development of, throughout the state, of something called an MTAG that looks at equating the equivalencies of experience to coursework that can be transportable throughout the state. So we're very committed.
Gentleman back over there.
Yeah, my name is Alfonso Herrera, and I was born here in Sullivan and moved back to Ireland in 1932. Now, how many of you people went to school in Ireland in 1930 and 1940? Anybody? The teachers, they were savages. They were savages. You know, they gave you, you hated school. I was drafted in the army in Ireland. I was a United States citizen. And I let my GI Bill run out, and I let my Korean Bill run out because I hated school so much. I got so much beaten up on the school in Ireland that I hated school. And I think I can't say that for my children now. My children all went to school here in this country, and they all got an excellent education. But I honestly believe that the teachers in Ireland in the 1930s and 1940 were the worst qualified to teach anybody. Thank you very much.
You can follow that up. Comment on it. We're very similar here. Methodology was very similar here. So, what I wanted to ask was, in the 1980s, you know, we had vast immigration from Ireland. Some estimates were about 150,000. Some of us in New York City, in the Emerald Isle Immigration Center, wanted to encourage these to proceed to gain their high school diplomas, that's secondary school education, and after that go on to higher education. We found in surveys that about 19 to 20% were dropouts from the high school system, and while there were a lot of college graduates, there were also a lot of non-college graduates. So to encourage that, we set up a special committee to work with them. And we produced a book explaining the differences between the Irish system and the American system. It also contained a list of all the grants, the student assistance available. I was wondering if those of you who are involved with exchange students or encouraging, or for example, Tom, you mentioned that there were 1,000 American students in your university system. I was wondering if you had such a book.
No, the answer is we don't.
You don't now. You don't have. We have. The booklet is out of print, and it probably needs to be updated. But if you're interested, we can provide you a copy of that. And would also address Colleen's questions about the two systems. But the two systems are quite different. And this book explains exactly that.
Who else?
Just real quick, Tom, does online education happen in Ireland now?
Yeah.
It does.
There's a big
it does.
investment
Okay.
going on
yeah.
right now.
And is there veterans programs too? With I don't know if there's military. I mean,
No.
Okay, I just. Okay.
Yes.
Tom, I just want to ask you, there's an obsession at second level in Ireland around language, around French, around learning French, yet we see very few jobs advertised that require French. What role can the universities play in changing that, and what are the most popular languages here? Because in Ireland, like Mandarin and German would probably be more suited to getting a job. And I just need to ask you the other problem, and how do you think it may be solved around asylum seekers in Ireland who cannot access the grant system for third level. So no matter how well they do in terms of points, they cannot access the funding for it, even though they're on extremely low incomes, sometimes something like €19 a week.
Well, can I just deal with the asylum seekers issue first, because I personally have been very privileged through our foundation to help a lot of them. And, you know, in Gort, in County Galway, we have a community of Brazilians, because the Brazilians came there to work in the meat industry, we had a situation a couple of years ago where we had twin boys who did outstandingly well in the Leaving certificate, but they couldn't come into the Irish system. They could have come in, but you had to pay full private fees. In other words, the European rules state that they're non-European citizens, and we were obliged to charge them €33,000 each. Now, by the time, but it alerted me to this problem. I didn't know about this problem. And we've now set up a fund, and we handle a lot of those scholarships. By the time we got the fund in place, those twin boys actually had gone to Florida, a Brazilian charity in the US, had actually heard the story and gave them scholarships to go to Florida, which I think was terrific. But we actually, in our foundation, we help a lot of the children of asylum seekers who to access the system, and we have some very, very fine donors, you know, to put very substantial funds behind that. So I know that in terms of the Galway area, the funds are there, and you know, so to be able to deal with the problem. On the question of the languages, it's interesting because universities are actually finding it hard to fill courses that are just in the language alone. You know, in Galway, there were departments of French, Spanish, German, and they struggled to get any meaningful number of students. People are learning languages now at an early age, but in relation to your question, why would you need to learn French? Let me tell you this. Google employs 6,000 people in Dublin. The vast majority of those people have to have 3 languages, because Google's, the operation in Dublin is called EMEA, Europe, Middle East and Africa. And they hire people who can communicate not just in French, but in the many dialects of France. They have people who can speak in Catalan, in Spanish. So these new industries have a huge requirement to be able to communicate worldwide in the language and or dialect of the local community.
But you don't make a choice much in the second level schools,
No.
French, and that's it.
No, you don't.
So if you make a choice between the languages, I think you would more.
Yeah, there's quite limited choice at the school level, but there are a lot of people, as you know, doing languages as an extra curricular subject.
And in the US, you can actually come in with very little language and pick it up. Our most popular was just Spanish, since it was quickly becoming a completely bilingual country, and actually Arabic, Chinese, and then German.
Yeah.
French sort of went down. It's a slight resurgence, but really Spanish. I mean, we have 1,000 Saudi students at Cleveland State University, and that's a growing population. We've got between anywhere, depends on fluctuations, 3,000 international students, and I would say now it's India, China, and Saudi is our biggest one, in India, then China. But amongst the students here, it's Spanish and Arabic and Chinese and then German.
At this time, as we're getting ready to close, I'd like to offer each of our panelists an opportunity to make any concluding remarks. Do you have anything else you'd like to offer today?
Well, I think as Irish Americans, we have a culture that has been quite dedicated to learning and to education. That's something of our cultural traditions and history of which we can be eminently proud. I would just say that if you're a student or a parent of a student, please consider the range of options, things that look beyond your experience or beyond your finances. May well not be so, and also that colleges are more poised than ever before to provide academic support, advising, and dedicated to, in our case, the care of the whole person and to their success.
I believe that universities continue to be great transformative agencies, both transforming individuals and transforming societies. I'm a demographer by training. I always tell people, if you go to university, you will live 5 years on average longer. You'll be 5 good years. Your health will be better. Your career will be better. Your income will be better. Your marriages will even last longer, but no guarantee given the certificate. They still are, for a country that is still a great immigrant country, and it is the ladder of opportunity, is the way forward. I think we all have to work in partnership, federal, state, and local levels to ensure that education is still accessible, affordable, and still part of the American dream.
And I would simply add that community colleges, given our cornerstones of education, economy, culture, and community, really are at the core of transforming communities and really helping people meet their dreams, and working very much in collaboration with the other sectors, and would love to have a conversation with NIUG to look at any potential exchange opportunities there as well.
Well, yes, that's one thing I've learned from today is the importance of interchange between universities and colleges and providing opportunities for people to meet. And I certainly, anything I can do to foster that, I will do. And just finally, I'd like to say it's lovely coming back to Cleveland. You had heard when Gary read my CV, I don't come from an academic background. I was in business, and to some extent I'm still in business for 35 years plus. And I first came to Cleveland to visit the Cleveland Clinic in a totally different capacity nearly 30 years ago. And in different stages of my career, I've had reason to come back to Ohio, both to Cleveland and Cincinnati. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for our panelists for being with us. Let's give them a round of applause for again, thank the Mayo Society and Senator Sweeney for having me come in today. I'll just say, on a personal level, I have 2 boys, 21 and 23. One's at the University of Cincinnati, and the other one's at Cincinnati State Community College, so they're in 2 different systems there. 7 years ago, they got a chance to go to England for the World Centennial of Boy Scouting. It's the most expensive vacation I never took. And so I'm looking forward to them completing their college and getting jobs, so I can get them off my payroll, because so far the only Dublin I've been to here in Ohio, and I'm going to go to the real one. Thank you.